Okay, we're live.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome, members, and to those who are joining us this morning. Welcome to today's Bi-County Subcommittee meeting of the Prince George's House Delegation. For those who are joining us and not familiar with our protocol here on the subcommittee, these are not public bill hearings. We had those in December. These are work groups for the various subcommittees in the delegation. With that said, we have two pieces of legislation on our docket, which is MCPG 112 and MCPG 115. For the members, you'll recollect that MCPG 112 was brought up in subcommittee, moved out to delegation, and from our last week's Friday delegation meeting, there was consternation amongst various members of the delegation. With that said, for those who may not remember what this bill was, this was a WSSC bill with establishing certain customer classes for certain rates and service charges and the like. I would entertain the subcommittee here. There was a motion, since we did get it to delegation, if there would be a motion that we could discuss in detail more, and if there would be a motion to, and Shane, correct me if I'm wrong, to reconsider that motion so that we could have open discussion and see where this all.
I'll move to reconsider.
Is there a second?
Second.
Delegate here. So there's been a motion and a second that we are recommitting, and we will be discussing now. And I would entertain the motion. I would like to, in this rare instance, as I mentioned, we don't have folks who will be participating, but in this particular case, because of the consternation amongst the subcommittee members, we have Mr. Simons, who is here with us from WSSC, and please pose those questions where necessary for Mr. Simons. So with that, Mr. Simons, you have the floor.
Good morning, Chair Valderrama and committee members. Thank you for allowing me to join you again today. So I'm going to start by responding to some of the questions that were called from the the delegation meeting last Friday. And so one of the questions was how many classifications of customers would there be? And so a specific classifications has not been determined. With the legislation in place, we would further study the classifications. However, our intent currently is to reclassify the 1.5 inch meters for residents the same as 1 inch meters. So again, right now, 1.5 inch meter residents and 1.5 inch meter commercial customers are charged the same. In our system, we are able to identify them as commercial or residential. However, again, they're charged the same fee. And so what we would be able to do is classify 1.5 inch meter residential customers to be charged the same rate as 1.1 inch meter residents. And so I'll go now to my next question, which discusses the fee difference. And so what would the fee difference be between residential and commercial customers? Currently, the fee that this bill is referring to, the infrastructure investment fee for 1.5 inch meters, is $102 and 56 cents per quarter. And the 1 inch meters, I'm referring to the wrong information. Currently, 1.5 inch meters charged $169.23 per quarter, compared to one inch meters that are charged $26.32. So that is a difference of $142 that 1.5 inch meters customers have to pay and 1 inch meter customers have to pay. By switching the 1.5 inch residential customers to 1 inch meter fees, that customer would save over $560 a year, because they would be in fact saving $142 per quarter for that infrastructure investment fee that we would now be able to change. The infrastructure investment cost for commercial customers would remain at that $169.32 quarterly fee. We don't intend to change that. The question was, will the installation of 1.5 inch meters grow? It is not a predominant practice. We've seen a very few over the last couple of years, but they still do get implemented. So it's primarily addressing current homeowners that have this issue, but there may be some that occur in the future. Another question was, there is no language about reporting. We are certainly open to providing that. We actually would, that supports our mission to move forward with further customer classes, because again, the intent of the original bill was to create general the authority to create customer classes. And after the feedback from the delegation, we decided to scale it down to this specific instance. But we are more than happy to provide that information to demonstrate the effectiveness of allowing customer classes. So we're more than happy to oblige that. And then the last question, will the difference in revenue from customer savings be made up by increased costs to commercial customers? Again, we will not be changing the infrastructure investment fee for commercial customers. And the intent of this bill is to be customer friendly. We are reclassifying them and not expecting to change fees to increase to make up for that difference in revenue. This fee was implemented in July of 2024 after our budget was approved. And so we've only actualized not profit revenue from this since July. And so this has not been a long-term fee that these customers have incurred. So before it becomes a long-term thing, we want to be able to provide savings to our customers. And so those are the 5 questions that I have a response from the delegation meeting. And if you have any further questions, I'm happy to respond.
Delegate Harris.
Thank you. Oh, Harris or Harrison?
Oh, I'm sorry. I said Harris. I didn't see yours.
No worries. No worries.
Oh, you go ahead, Madam First Vice.
Thank you. So there were a couple of questions actually that came to mind after that explanation. It seems that I remember there was some discussion about multifamily buildings and whether or not they were considered commercial, and how does that play into this? But then the other question that came into based on what you just said, Mr. Simons, is you said that this just went into effect and hasn't, been going long. Was it a mistake to have this, and we're correcting a mistake, or how was the how and or why was it implemented, and and now this is just a reversal of that?
So to clarify, it's not a mistake. It's based on our statute that requires our fees to be uniform. So the 1.5 inch meters, when it was determined by the budget approval, was that 1.5 inch meters needed to be at the service at the rate of $169 per quarter. And it happens to be that there are a number of residential customers that are classified as 1.5 inch meter, but it is overwhelmingly for commercial customers. So if we had we would be able to provide them cost savings instead of having to receive a 65% increase in that fee, which was determined from the budget, like the commercial customers. So it's not a mistake. It's part of a restriction from not having any authority to create customer classes, that those who happen to have a 1.5 inch meter are required to pay the same as a commercial.
And what about multifamily buildings? Do they fall into this? How does that work?
Yes, they will fall into, so they're classified as single family, and then they're classified as townhouse complexes, which are the multifamily, and then we have townhouses. And so those 3 categories will be classified that have 1.5 inch meters will all be under a residential fee that, again, we will make the same as the 1.5 inch meter. So all of those will now be having a fee of like $26 a quarter.
Thank you.
We'll have Delegate Harris and then Delegate Healy.
Appreciate it, Madam Chair. So appreciate the update, Mr. Simons. A quick question is, one, do folks know if they have a 1 inch meter or 1.5 meter based off their bill, Like, does it say 1.5 inch meter on the bill? Like, how would someone know that they were getting charged the 1.5 inch meter, and now it's going to be reduced if this bill was to pass? Like, how would someone know that?
It is identified in our system, and yes, they are notified that their fee is based on it having a 1.5 inch meter. So they are made aware in their bill, yes, that they have a 1.5 inch meter, and therefore they're being charged that level of a fee.
Got it. Because and maybe when I asked that question, I think it makes. I mean, I'm for the bill. It makes sense to do this. I just want to make sure folks know and see the change in
Right.
the in the bill. So because that's a huge difference for folks. And the other piece of that, I think folks believe that the 1.5 inch meter was was inserted just for mansions, and I don't think that's about accurate. So it's because of the new was it the fire suppression system that's installed in most of these homes, that's calls for this 1.5 inch meter.
Correct. And again, this is applied to townhomes and multifamily complexes. So it's, yes.
Got it. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Delegate Healy.
Thank you. My questions are along the same line, and because I was kind of surprised with the delegation. I would just want to be clear about, do you have numbers on how many of these 1.5 residential are in actual single-family homes versus in townhome groups? So that they're actually more than one home on the 1.5 and it serves a whole cluster of townhouses?
Yes, so I do have numbers, and hopefully I'm answering your question fully. So for single-family homes in Prince George's County, and again, this bill is impacting a limited amount of customers, but it is significant, and we want to move forward with assisting as best as possible. There's 105 single-family homes in Prince George's County, and then there are 31 townhouse complexes, so multifamily units that have 1.5 inch meters, and then there are 63 townhouses that have it.
Now, the actual single-family homes, were they recently built? Is that why they have this difference from everybody else's single-family home?
I don't have the information specifically on when all of these are built. I do know that it was something that started in the late 90s, so some of them are not necessarily brand new. And I don't know if homes have been recoded, or I'm not sure if I'm using the right language, but like sold and then had to, after new codes have been in place, they had to put in the fire suppression system. So I'm not sure when the actual requirement applied to each of these homes. But I was told that they were primarily newer homes and in the 90s.
Okay, and it's very it just seems like, if I don't have any problem with the townhouses and the multifamily dwellings where many families are getting the service, but I'm still concerned about a single family home that's got a swimming pool and 6 bathrooms and all of those things, and that's why they need to have this break. I'm not sure that's really a realistic or a good thing to do. So I really want to understand who the people are that get the break. And furthermore, I really want to understand how you can how much money is involved for WSSC that would have to be made up somewhere. I mean, there's no such thing as a free lunch. So if they're not paying, somebody else has to pay. Who's paying?
So to your first question about the single family homes, again, we don't have the ability to have customer classes at all. And so what we have heard was feedback from individuals who are affected by this 1.5 increase, and identified this as an opportunity to demonstrate how we could provide cost savings to our customers by implementing this fee structure. And the only way to do that is to get legislative action to permit us to do that. We would like, again, our original bill before the amendment was to have general authority to make this even broader and to do it even more so that we could have more detailed explanation about like how all of our customers, not just the individuals that have 1.5 inch meters, how all of them could benefit from the rate structure or different fee structure. We just don't have that ability to do that. And so I do understand your concern. However, it does impact multifamilies, it does impact townhomes, and we feel that assisting customers in any capacity for cost savings is something that we would like the ability to do.
And the other part of my question is, who's paying for it? How's it being paid for?
Again, so this fee was implemented in July, so it's not a who's paying for it. It's a revenue from the required structure. If it gets off, we're not, let me just be clear. What I've been, to my understanding, we are not offsetting the revenue from this with other fees to implement this.
So where is the money coming from to implement it? That's what I want to know. If it's not
It doesn't require implementation because they're just being reclassified. So those individuals will continue to pay a fee. It will just not be $160 per quarter. It will be $25, $26 per quarter.
So what is the loss to WSSC, the total dollar amount?
So the reduction would be approximately $478,000 a year.
So
With that,
basically $500,000 a year. I know WSSC has an enormous budget, so that's probably not a lot in the great scheme of things. But I think the purpose of transparency, it's important to have all this on the table because we need to know. Our job is oversight, and so I think we need to know all of these things. I still have concerns, but I'm not going to ask any more questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Delegate Healy. I see Delegate Roberts has her hand up.
Yes, good morning. I just want to be clear about this situation as well. So does this mean that going forward, townhomes or single family dwellings, the duplexes and all, they will now be built with 1 inch meters versus the 1.5 inch meters? That's one question.
To my understanding that yes, they can be. There was a policy that required them to be done back when these were built in over the past few decades. But commonly they are not required. They just need 1 inch meters. So like I said, that's why only very few of them are made or use 1.5 inch meters.
And the ones that are being reduced, the fees are being reduced, they currently have the 1.5 inch meters.
Correct.
Okay. And and I guess to Delegate Healy's point, yeah, because I think I heard you say that this is revenue. So is it strictly revenue?
Yes, that is correct.
So it's strictly revenue, so the loss is not necessarily a loss, it's just loss in revenue, but not loss in, I guess what you call it, cost of doing business.
Correct. And if we had the ability when the budget was being proposed, we would have been able to identify that had these almost 1,000 homeowners would have that ability to have the 1.5 inch, I'm sorry, the 1 inch meter fee rather than the 1.5.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Roberts. Vice Chair Harrison.
I'm sorry to come back around. But prior to the budget last year, how were these individuals, how were these meters billed, I guess? Were they all the same price? You had the commercial versus the residential, and or what happened prior to, because I think this would get to Delegate Healy's point of the overall revenue that had been generated since June. So what happened prior to the budget in June?
Thank you for your question, and I will definitely get more details for that on that for you because unfortunately I joined in June, so I wouldn't have all the background. But what I do know is that prior to the July increase, the fee for it was still 1.5-inch meters at a set fee and 1-inch meters at a set fee. There were no distinctions between custom, commercial, and residential. That is just in our system to identify, but they were all charged the same fee based on their meter size. And prior to this increase, the 1.5-inch meter was charged at $102 per quarter, which and the 1-inch meters were charged at $15.95 per quarter. And in the determinations of the budget or the reasons why the 1.5-inch meters needed to increase, it went from $102 to $169. And so anybody at the time that was classified as a 1.5-inch meter had to fill that increase. And so the difference between the 1.1-inch meters went from $15.95 to $26.32, a much smaller financial impact. And so we would like to be able to classify those residential 1.5-inch meters to experience that similar financial impact.
Okay, so basically what you're saying then at the end of the day is that WSSC is just going to eat the cost of the difference in the revenue.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Are there any other questions or discussion? Mr. Simons, I would request, since you had listed all of the answers to the questions that were Friday, if you could provide me that document just so that I have all that information, and if any of the delegation members, have questions.
Absolutely.
Delegate Roberts, you have another question?
I do. One more question. I do apologize. Is this retroactive or just going forward only? So will customers receive credits or anything like that from June?
I will get clarification on that, but I believe it's going forward, not retroactive. That's written.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Roberts. Any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, so I will say, before I ask if there is entertaining a motion, I would, because there was consternation amongst other members outside our subcommittee, I think it would be fruitful I don't see any, I'm not getting a sense of any opposition here in the subcommittee. Maybe there might be consternation, as I said, but to have full discussion again in delegation. So I preface by saying that so to see to entertain a motion on this piece of legislation.
Move favorably.
Second.
So there's been a motion and a second. Shane, we could do a roll call, or
I can do a roll call. And just as a reminder, this is the bill with the amendments. Delegate Harris.
I vote aye.
Vice Chair Harrison.
I vote aye.
Delegate Healy.
Pass.
Delegate Roberts.
Aye.
Delegate Healy.
Pass.
Chair Valderrama.
aye. And if you would, Shane, just since we're all here publicly, just to remind everyone who's joining us, could you just go over with the amendments so that I know you said it's as amended,
Sure.
but just
Sure, certainly. So the bill as amended, it would just basically authorize the commission to create a customer class within any given meter size for the minimum ready to serve charge. And that's it. And with that, Madam Chair, your vote tallies 4 in favor, 1 pass.
thank you kindly. Thank you, members. We will now move on to the second piece of legislation. I'm sorry, did someone say something?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Simons, for joining us. Second piece of legislation is MCPG 115, which is the Utility Services master meters. We have Delegate Holmes who's with us, and point of personal privilege to allow Delegate Holmes to cover briefly what was brought up last week, because I know there was, again, consternation with this bill. Delegate Holmes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate the opportunity for the members of the committee. I want to make sure I express what it is I'm attempting to accomplish here. The primary purpose here is to attempt to increase housing stock in Prince George's County. I'm sure all of us recognize it. In Prince George's, we are the only jurisdiction in the state that has these unique, special metered situations. And sometimes we get overlooked, and builders and developers kind of bypass us. And what I'm trying to do is increase the housing stock for homes that could be more affordable, which is the duplex type of housing stock. And again, this legislation is going to be confined in the condominium, is going to be confined to the condominium structure only. We all recognize that there is in common ownership communities, there's the HOAs, the condos, and the co-ops. So if a duplex is constructed or transitioned into a condominium home style controlled by the Maryland Condominium Act, which is state legislation, that's how these duplexes would be governed. And with that, Madam Chair, I'll entertain any questions from the committee.
Thank you, Delegate Holmes. Are there any questions or discussion? I don't see. I do see that we have Chair. Before I go there, Vice Chair Harris.
So I'll just go back and for the record reiterate my concern based on a community that is in my district that has had a number of problems over the years because of their master meter situation. It is a cooperative in which they have a number of master meters that read for a number of the different units, townhome units, and then they feed into the community master meter. So there are, I'm going to, for lack of a better term, I'll say sub master meters, and then the primary master meter. And what has happened in the past, people may not necessarily pay what is called their carrying charge, which is, I guess, similar to an HOA fee, and which is where the community, the management pays for pays the water based on the readings. And if there are units or group if there are individuals in those units that don't pay, then the community association does not necessarily have the money to cover it. And my concern was, if this should happen under this proposed bill with a master meter for a duplex and one person doesn't pay, and let's say they don't pay for a couple of months, do we risk the other units, the other tenants, not having water because the water has been cut off based on that cost? I hope that I explained that clearly, but I'm concerned about those who might be doing right adversely affected by those who are not.
Madam Chair. Thank you. I thank you for your question. I totally understand where your question is coming from. I totally understand your concern. But this is like any other type of billing system, at some point, if the bill isn't paid, you are correct, the water would be turned off, just like any other type of billing system. You are right. But the cost of the water reading, as indicated, is being incurred by the condominium association and the governing documents. If in your scenario, under the condominium law, if you and I are adjacent to each other in a duplex, and you are paying your condominium fee and I am not, the condominium association will continue to pay to a certain point. Condominium association will then, according to the Condominium Act of Maryland, the condominium will send me a request for payment. They will then continue to file grievances against me in the Condominium Act. They could, as is current law, file a lien against my home, and they could currently, based upon condominium law, foreclose upon my house. That's a normal condominium act. So, but the short answer to your question is, if it's a long process in the Condominium Act to have that water turned off. It would not be as quickly instituted in the turnoff as it would with a single, two individual meters. But at some point, to answer your question, at some point, eventually, if the condominium association can't pay the bill, then yes, the water will be shut off. Just like if the condominium association doesn't have money to pay for snow removal, or if the condominium association doesn't have enough money to pay for roof repair, then the roofs cave in. But the whole system is based upon the Maryland Condominium Act, and the water bill will be paid, like I said, by the condominium association.
Thank you.
Did that answer your question, Vice Chair? Okay. We have our chairwoman here, Chair Williams, point of personal privilege to allow our chair to chime in. Madam Chair, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. And I am only here. I was talking with Delegate Holmes yesterday about this piece of legislation. And before I was elected to the House of Delegates, I actually served on a task force that was created by the General Assembly to look at master meter condominiums in Prince George's County. And so I thought it might just be a good idea for me to hop on just as a way, if anyone had any questions about background or just other aspects about sort of how we got here and kind of what Delegate Holmes is proposing versus what we were seeing at that time when the task force was created, that was the precursor to the legislation that was passed by the General Assembly, excuse me, a ban master meters in condominiums in Prince George's County. So I just wanted to chime in that, I'm just here in that capacity if folks have questions. So thank you very much, Chair Valderrama.
Chair.
But
Madam Vice Chair.
that raises another question for me then. So, Madam Chair, are you saying that the task force recommended and the General Assembly passed legislation to ban master meters?
That is correct. And the emphasis behind it was we were seeing very large multifamily condominiums who were having issues in terms of maintaining appropriate budgets in order to pay the utilities in these large master meter condominium associations. There were a number, and when I say large, I mean these were condominium associations that had 100 units or more, and all 100 units were all on one master meter. And so that was part of the impetus about why the legislation was passed several years ago. It wasn't necessarily directed on, say, a small 2-unit duplex. We were actually not seeing, the task force was not seeing any of those types of scenarios in Prince George's County having negative impact with regards to being able to maintain their utilities and to continue to pay their various utilities and things like that.
Okay, yes, because I remember a lot of those issues, and even the community in which I'm referencing kind of fell under that as well. But I remember some of the other multifamily buildings. So thank you.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair and Chair. Are there any questions or discussion? Seeing none. Okay. I just want to make sure that that everyone's questions were answered before we move forward. With that said, I will entertain motion one way or otherwise. However, I will also say, if I'm getting the gauge here, if there also is not a motion posed before us, would it be helpful, and just in interest of making sure that bills that come before us are thoroughly vetted, just word it that way, I will take a motion for one way, another, a special order. It is up to us, the subcommittee, to see which way we would like to move forward. How about I put it that way?
Well, I guess I'll speak up. No one else is speaking up. This one is difficult for me because I understand what Delegate Holmes is attempting to do and the reason behind it. Having come from local government and having dealt with these particular issues and the number of, and I actually have forgotten about the multifamily issues until Chair Williams brought that up. I remember getting the calls from individuals in the complexes, and the one in my particular district was just so bad. I personally have a hard time with this one, and if there isn't anyone else who is interested in putting forward a recommendation, I would recommend special ordering this again. For me personally, I'm having a very difficult time remembering hearing the people who were just distraught because of the issues that they were facing because of the condo associations or multifamily associations or multifamily management, that one did not pay for whatever reason, but then the others, hearing the stories about individuals not paying the carrying costs and the problems with the water. And I don't know that I guess I haven't heard that particular issue with this community that I'm referring to, but they're still having a multitude of problems. And it's hard for me to move on this one personally.
I will take that. Delegate Harris, I know you have your hand up. Go ahead before we move forward with Delegate Harrison's motion.
Absolutely. I know I was one of the ones that had tons of questions last week. I had talked to Delegate Holmes offline. So Delegate Holmes knows where I stand on this particular bill. I'm not totally enthusiastic about it, mainly because I grew up in multifamily unit. My mom still lives in a multifamily unit and have seen this go bad multiple times when this takes place. And so, her writing checks to the owner to pay for the water bill, and the water still gets cut off, right? So, so that's a reason why I understand the goal, but we still got to think about the folks who do right and pay their bill and come home one day and there's no water because someone was neglected or didn't want to pay the water bill as the owner of the property. So that's where I stand with this particular bill.
Delegate Harris. And I will remind the members, I'm minding the time as well. So we're quarter till. I will say that I will take that as Vice Chair Harrison made a motion for a special order, correct? Madam Vice
Yeah.
Chair?
Yes.
Second.
In a second. So we will special order this bill one more week, and I would request that before next week, there'll be further discussion, and there will be one way or the other moving forward, whichever direction that would be for next week. And I will just put out there, members, that there could be a chance that I may move up our time half an hour just because of the lengthy discussion, but you will know that prior to next week's meeting. So
Thank
with
you.
that,
Thank you all. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
with that said, if there's nothing else, we'll go to the order. I see no hands. That will conclude Pike County for this morning, and we'll meet again next week. Thanks.
Thank
guys.
you. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.